friends, thank you for coming on. And I just want to say that I am so deeply grateful for all that you do week in and week out. And I know that you're carrying a lot right now. I know that you're likely exhausted. Um, Even if we're not, even if we're getting good sleep and we start every day with energy, I am finding that the existential exhaustion is for real. And so my aim in this is to help you in every way that I can to prepare for an Advent Christmas season. I don't want you to start from scratch. I don't want you to have to do this alone. And so that's why I do what I do. That's why my ministry is that of resourcing you, helping you get through, especially this time. And so welcome to all of you from all over. We're going to start with watching the trailer from the series just to remind ourselves of the underlying theme. And then I'm going to talk with my collaborator, Mark Miller, about the inspiration for this series before we get into the technical how-tos and the get ready helps that we're going to do. So friends, back in early July, I began to create this series, inspired by the song that you heard a snippet of from my dear friend Mark Miller, and the idea that instead of turning away from music because we can't do it full out this Advent Christmas, that we would instead turn and focus on it, and focus on our appreciation of the power of music in difficult times. I began to conceive of how we might fill the night with music and light. And I have to tell you that the journey of creating the series was hope-filled for me. And so I hope that it will fill you with hope as you prepare, and it will fill your congregations with hope as they experience it in the Advent Christmas season. We're going to talk today about what I call an anchor image, the luminaria, the symbol of filling the night with music and light. We're going to talk about the small group materials, the inspirational documentaries that I watched in preparation as I was preparing these services and how they might be a powerful addition to what you do on Sunday mornings or whenever you worship. And then we'll go over all of the scripts and all of the materials. What's included in this, my friends, are what I call fully scripted worship experiences, 6, 4 for Advent, 1 for Christmas Eve, and 1 for the Sunday after Christmas. Lots of ideas and liturgy for Blue Christmas, and what I call a pilgrimage Christmas Eve, so that people can come and experience their sanctuary, even if you are in an area that's not doing adapted in-person worship at this time. Sermon fodder is included. Original introit and prayer music by composer Mark Miller that we'll talk about, handbell benediction, and ideas and suggestions from my friend and guest expert Stephanie Rhoades, who will be with us today. Visual and media ideas for you so that your folks can get to work right away preparing for a beautiful time. A film festival for individuals and small groups, and a separate one for children done by Mark Burrows. Logo and video trailers that you can adapt for your use, and access to a community of people. And this is one of the most exciting things about our series and our new platform in the Worship Design Studio is that you will be able to share and crowdsource ideas so that you are not alone. Even if you're in a small church and you feel like you're a one-person team, you are not alone. We are all with you. We're all in it together, and we're all going to share resources. Very exciting. So my friend Mark Miller is here, and we're going to, Mark, let's just talk about that conversation we had um, early on this summer when we talked about how people were asking us and saying it's going to be difficult to imagine Christmas without singing, and so we really talked deeply about that and about the disappointment and the frustration of musicians and choir persons and ensembles um, with this pandemic, because it especially hits hard our musicians. And so, remembering back to our conversation, Mark, I I just remember saying, Mark, what can we do to serve musicians, especially in this time? What do you remember about our conversation?
Well, yeah, it was. It, it's something like you don't want to think about until because it's so hard. You know what I mean? Uh, we'll get through it, of course. But the I've been thinking about the fact that for most of us, or I know for me personally, a choir will not be gathering, but uh, I'll be sure to be playing music. I'll be leading carol singing from a piano. We'll be trying to show old videos of the choir. We'll be making virtual choir,
Yeah.
available. So, and I know there's some folks that can, do distancing, some distancing things outside. I'm so glad that that this series provides some idea of doing some outdoor distancing. We've already talked about it with our church staff to do a Christmas Eve service in
Yeah.
person, distanced, and how we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, I felt like, Mark, you are, both of us decades now of resourcing churches in liturgy and in music. And in some ways, it felt like a pastoral call for both of us to really focus on music and to really um, give folks some hope about how musicians could be key and could have real leadership roles in this moment. And we knew that the summer, we were talking in the summer, and we knew that at that point people were, oftentimes choirs take the summer off, and so it wasn't as acute, the sense that we weren't doing anything. But we knew when fall came around, we would begin to, mourn yet again the fact that we're not yet past this virus, and it's not safe yet to sing in numbers. And so we began to think, well, how could we encourage people and give people resources to actually give leadership to our musicians? And so I began to conceive of this series that would have music as the core message, and the way that music has been powerful in times of difficulty. I know that ever since the pandemic began, you have been doing Friday sing-alongs on Facebook. And I know that people so appreciate the community and the sense of being together in that. And that is the power of music, right? To keep us together, even if we can't hear each other sing, to have you leading in oftentimes songs of yours that people have been singing for a long time now and are beloved. And it just brings a sense of community. And so there's so much that musicians can do to be pastors, really, to be pastoral, let's say, and to be inspirational spiritual leaders in this moment.
Absolutely. If there's, I, I, I think about my friends. I work with rabbis in the High Holy Days, and the one of the biggest holy days, one of the biggest holidays, of course, is Seder and the Paschal meal, and that is that's a at home experience. I mean, you might go to synagogue, I mean, you go to synagogue or temple, but then the real thing happens in the home.
Right.
And it's really what's going to happen for Christians this holiday
Yeah.
season. And it's really important to kind of nurture that home setting, wherever
That's right.
it might be. I feel that, at least.
Yeah. So we decided that we would sponsor a series of virtual choir webinars, which we did with the Practical Church Resources Center. And so we have all of those. And I'm going to be telling folks all about these nitty gritty details um, as we go along, and where you can find tutorials for so many of these things that we have decided that could be leadership roles for musicians. So what I really want to get to, though, Mark, is to share with folks exactly what you have provided for us and while you're still on. And so, one of the things we want to talk about is the I Believe anthem, that actually is several years old and has been a bestseller for the Choristers Guild for a long time. And it's a beloved one. Many choirs have already sung it. So, we're using that as a sort of theme song. And so, we created what I call threshold moments, which are shorter pieces of that anthem that will start every service. And I will go over this in detail later in this webinar, but just wanted to point out that this theme song and the threshold moment, Mark, you have provided us scores and an accompaniment track for that, so that people can create their own versions of that recorded, so that they can use that every Sunday. Even if you're in person adapted worship, you're still going to want to use some choral recordings rather than choral live, because that's just still not safe. And so we're going to help you every step of the way learn to do that. But Mark has provided that for us, these shorter versions of the anthem. And of course, your choir will want to prepare the whole anthem for use on Advent 1 and Christmas Eve, perhaps. But we have these shorter ones that you've provided the score and the accompaniment track. So thank you so much. The other piece that Mark has given us is a song that was actually composed years ago but was never published, and so we get to premiere it. I'm very excited. In the Stillness is a gorgeous, gorgeous song, and something that is absolutely perfect for this time, when we can just, during the prayer time, get still and be reminded that God is meeting us there. Tell us a little bit about this song, Mark.
Yeah, it came from an earlier collaboration with Lindy Thompson, who lives in Franklin, Tennessee, and has since become a wonderful friend. And we've gotten to write a lot of music together. She sent these words, and they weren't kind of in a normal, strophic pattern or with a rhyme. But I thought, well, let me take a look at them and see what she's trying to say. And I was immediately pulled to the spirit of these words,
Mm.
uh, to ask God to quiet us, to meet us in that still place. Um, and I don't think Lindy would mind me saying I did a little bit of shaping down of the words and just left kind of this bare bones,
Mm.
meet me in the stillness, God,
Yeah.
be the air we breathe, meet the stillness, free me to receive. I love that, just the openness, the kind of leave me open, God, so that I
Yeah.
can be ready to receive.
Yeah, and one of the things that I love about that poetry is that free me to receive. There's so much when we're in these kinds of difficult times. Our tendency is try to control things, right? Because we feel so out of control. And really, the freedom comes when we open ourselves, we relinquish that need to control, and know that we are held and that we are met in the stillness by God's love and by God's care. And so this just felt like every week. It's one of the things I call a thread song. So it's a repeated song each week that gets us ready for prayer time. And it will indeed help us to just center and breathe and be still. You want to play a little bit, Mark?
Of course, yeah. Yet just beyond that frantic pace, I'm reading the score off the screen. Our restless feet have trod, lie deep still pools of quietness, the dwelling place of God. Meet me in the stillness, Lord. Be the air I breathe. Meet me in the stillness, Lord. Free me to receive.
Oh, holy living God, we give you thanks in this time that you have brought us together, that we are not alone, that you meet us here. We pray for the strength for all those on this webinar, all those watching the recording, that they will find stillness in the midst of the anxiety of preparations, and that they will know that whatever they can offer is oh so good. That you, God, call it good whenever we connect, whenever two or three are gathered. We pray this in the name of Jesus, who walks with us, and whose birth, whose incarnation, whose entrance into our lives we celebrate yet again. Amen. Okay, alrighty, I'm verklempt already. You know, we just, I'm so aware that in the midst of trying to prepare deeply spiritual experiences for people who are stressed and exhausted, that pastors and musicians and visual artists and worship teams are all stressed themselves. And so I hope that your preparations can contain moments when you are fed. And that's really our goal in this, is to support you. So Mark, let's talk a little bit about the anthems that we have suggested. You know, one of the reasons why I've suggested anthems for every week that are Mark Miller's is twofold. One, that he writes eminently fabulous music that's not super difficult. Some things he's written, of course, are very difficult, but we tried to, or not very difficult, advanced, for advanced choirs, but we tried to pick ones that actually would be easier to learn for folks and powerful. Mark has such a heart for social justice and a deep person of faith. And so these were absolutely perfect for, and of course, Mark is continuing to create ones. Just this morning, he says, oh, wow, I just created this thing and it would be perfect for this. Mark, I know, we're going to just keep getting them from you. But these are the ones we decided a couple of months ago. And the other reason why I chose these is because Mark graciously extends permission to live stream those, so to post those in whatever way you are posting your worship. So that's a big thing. So these are the ones that we suggest if people are going to use yours rather than something that's maybe already in their repertoire. But the I Believe, we've talked about that. You're going to, even though you have the shorter versions of that in our downloads, you're going to want the full version, and that will be, of course, all these anthems are sold separately. The orchestration is also available for that on the Chorister's Guide site. If you have, if you're a larger church with orchestra, or even if you have a few instruments, if you have a flute player, or an oboe player, or a cello, you can get that. You can buy an accompaniment track for it if you're in need of that. And I put links to all of these so that you can listen to them. You can see a video of the performance of them so that you can get a sense of it. The second one, and of course, it's hope, love, joy, peace. And so that has a lot to do with the ones that we chose, along with the fact, and we're going to talk about the documentaries in a while, but they also have to do with the documentaries that will be featured either in the sermon or in small groups, that kind of thing. So love is broken down the wall. Mark Miller has, it has become a favorite among so many choirs, but especially youth choirs. You know, you do so much work with youth. Talk to us a little bit about how you might, if you've got a youth choir, this might be a perfect time to get them to do a virtual choir of that.
Sure. Well, it's first of all, it's really accessible. It could be sung unison all the way through. It has parts part of the way through. I had written it originally. I don't know if I told. I think I told you, Marcia, but I'd written it, but then put it away, and it came back to me at the death of Tyler Clementi, who was a young 18-year-old freshman at Rutgers here in New Jersey, who was outed many years ago now. This was at the beginning of social media, outed by his roommate kissing another boy. He took his own life. Mm-hmm. And I thought, how important is it, especially for young people, to know that second verse when we say, we're accepted as we are. It really gave me an urgency to want to get that song out there, particularly for young people, to say, you are accepted and you can help in this, casting aside your doubts and fears, as the song says, and help tear down the walls of hatred that separate us.
Yeah. So I just want to show here in each one of the scripts, I call the anthem the witness of music, right? Because we're really focusing on music as witness in this powerful way. And I have a suggestion that the introduction to the anthem be done by choral director, music director, somebody in the music program. You might want to shift that around to different ones of your choir or your musicians. But I've written these introductions, and this one, if you do follow preachers, you're going to use some of the sermon fodder that I wrote about the documentaries in your sermons, then this is a great introduction here. And one of the reasons why I put Girls on the Wall, which is this amazing documentary about young people in juvenile prison making a musical out of their lives and being transformed by it. That's one of the reasons why it's paired with this anthem. And so I've written some fodder here that, of course, you adapt it for your context, you massage it. But I also want to say, if you decide not to use the anthems that we have suggested, I want to encourage you, whatever you use, to introduce the anthems and the deeper meaning of them, because that's partly what we can do in this pandemic. Since we can't sing full out, we can turn our attention to the appreciation of the poetry and the music and the power of the message. So I just wanted to highlight that and say, do take more time than you might usually take to introduce the anthem as a witness to the word. So Advent 3, one of my favorites, Mark's, it's a simple refrain, we resist, and then it has this layering over the top of two different melody lines, and it's very percussive, and it goes really with the documentary of that week that is about the power. This is Joy Week, and Ode to Joy, Beethoven's Ninth, was such an amazing, I had no idea about this, that it figured prominently in several resistance movements, justice movements around the world over, decades, centuries. And so this anthem of Mark's, that's very easy but very powerful, is really that we will, in the name of love and joy and peace and hope, we will resist the powers of evil. And so that's a wonderful one for that. There you go.
I didn't think, but we could we resist, we refuse
Yes.
to let hatred in. We rise up, we won't back down. We're in this till the end. We're in this till the end.
arrangement real quick, Mark? I love it. So you bookend that. It's fabulous. So yeah, exactly. Um, Advent 4, When Angels Sing, is a fairly new one, but it is hot off the press, published, and so you can get that one. And then Christmas Eve, we suggest that you repeat that I believe, even when we've had choirs say that when they've done that on like Advent 1, people want to hear it like every week, the full anthem, because they're so, it is really such a deeply beautiful anthem, based on the words of an anonymous poet, words found scrawled on a wall during the Holocaust. Now, there's a lot of controversy and differences of opinion about exactly what kind of wall. Some people say a cave, some people say a hiding place, some people say a concentration camp. We don't really know. There's too much ambiguity there. So I think the best way to just say it is that it was found scrawled on a wall during the Holocaust is probably the most historically accurate we can be. But nevertheless, the poetry as poetry is so powerful that I believe in the sun even when the sun isn't shining. I believe in love even when I don't feel it. And I believe in God even when it seems God is silent. And then we've added a fourth verse because we needed Advent 4, and that is, I believe in the light that has come and is coming. So that sort of eschatological, the light is here and the light is coming. Time out of time. So the Sunday after Christmas, we really focus in the worship series, in that service, about what do we do now? What is the work that we must do moving forward? And so God has work for us to do is one that I've used many times in worship, Mark. It's just such a wonderful anthem that reminds us that we have work to do, and as disciples of Jesus Christ, we are called to do that work.
Till all the jails are empty and all the bellies filled, till no one hurts or steals or lies, and no more blood is spilled. God has work for us to do. God has work for us to do, till God's will is done and all things are made new. God has work for us, so much work for us, so much work, but don't be discouraged. Good work for us to do.
Yes. Mark, thank you for all that you have put into the world. I got to do a keynote at the Hymn Society one year, and it's kind of unusual. I'm not a hymn writer, but I am a liturgist. I am a ritual artist that, on a regular basis, is in collaboration with those of you who are composers, hymn writers, songwriters, composers. And I was able to say thank you to that group of people, a room full of composers that, when I find a song that is just right for a worship setting, the heavens open and the angels sing. And that's exactly how it feels. So thank you for being that for me so many times, Mark Miller. And for so many of us. Thank you. Thanks for being on with us. We're gonna move to Stephanie Rhoades, because Stephanie helped us with some handbell options. And, in a time of COVID when singing and aerosols from singing are dangerous, I thought, wow, let's use some handbells here. So Stephanie, who is artistic director of the Concert Bells in Fort Worth, a longtime collaborator and friend, I went to her and I said, Stephanie, can you help us to come up with some handbell options that would be easier to do in a safe way, meaning that we want folks to be a little bit more distanced perhaps than they might be right next to each other, that kind of thing. And she came through with a lot of suggestions for our handbell choirs. And she also took Mark's I Believe and created some handbell parts for that. And actually, this essentially, it's going to be usable in so many ways because it essentially takes you through one whole verse with an optional repeated introduction there. So you could play along with the virtual choir with this as well, but we're also thinking of it specifically as a handbell benediction at the end. And of course, if you don't have handbells, you could use chimes as well. And maybe Stephanie, you can tell us what chimes we might want to get, or even the kid bells could work in some way. So Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I hope some of Mark's creativity will rub off on me. Wow.
I know, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited because I used to work in a church and used many of the series that Marcia's put together, so really excited to be part of the collaboration on this. So the benediction that you see on the screen right now is essentially just some simple chords that you can use handbells or hand chimes. This is written in a range that would fit with a traditional 3-octave group. So if you have 3 octaves of handbells, you can use chimes or handbells, repeating that first 4 measure bar, or first 4 measures if you had, like, if you wanted to trail in with at the end of a prayer benediction. And just kind of give you an example, I've got some bells here at home. These are an octave higher because I don't have any bells at home that are that low, but just that simple. Open fifths, and then I've written it so you could actually have a sort of an antiphonal effect. So you'd have the low bells ring one, and then the higher bells ding, ching, and then it just follows the chord pattern of the anthem. So if you wanted to ooh or sing a verse that's part of the series for the day, you could do that and just repeat it as necessary. And then at the very end, I didn't put a fermata, but you could put a fermata on that last note and just hold it as long as you want to and let it fade, or just keep chiming those open fifths. Let it fade.
That's right. So you could use this in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Tell us, if people were going to just get some bells to do this, what notes and what things would they look for this?
Yeah, so typically handbells come in a range of octaves. The most basic set is 3 octaves. If you don't have 3 octaves, if you just have 2 octaves of chimes, you could adapt this, probably just make it just use what you have, but you'd need to have the lowest note an F sharp, to begin with. So you want to kind of keep that in the range. Mm-hmm. A lot of churches are not using their handbells right now, and so if you don't have a set and a church that's not using theirs, you can borrow them. Again, 3 octaves is almost everybody who has bells has at least 3 octaves. You could also add upper octaves to this if you wanted to. This is easy enough that a kids group, a beginning group. I had a beginning group at my church last year, and this would be a kind of thing that they could do because it's the rhythms are very easy.
Yeah. So the other thing that comes to mind is that for those of you who are going to be just recording this and then playing it every week, right? You could, even if you didn't have handbells, we'll wait for the plane to fly over.
Sorry, I'll mute.
No, it's okay. If you don't have handbells, you could actually maybe team up with a church that does have handbells and be able to just record this and get your feet wet around, using some handbells. What a great way to introduce that to your church if you don't have them.
Absolutely, because you wouldn't need tables. This was written with the idea that you could just spread yourselves apart, whether you were doing this live or doing a recording. Yeah. And so you could record this during the week. It wouldn't take you very long at all.
Yeah. So let's talk about this photo that you sent me to show. Obviously, during practice, you want to practice safe protocols. So just say a little bit about this.
Yeah, so this is a big church here in the Dallas area. They are not open at all for anything other than like this rehearsal and some recording things that they do for their worship services. This is their fellowship hall, and they're getting ready to record a couple of bell pieces for Christmas. You can see on the stand there, I heard the bells on Christmas Day. Maybe they're going to get ready for this series, right?
Exactly, that's Advent 1.
Yeah, and so as you can see, the director is in the front of the room there, standing on a little podium, and then the highest bells are spread out in that first row, then the middle bell, second row, and just, this whole area. Everybody has their own table. They're all wearing masks. When they come in, they have to have their temperature taken. They sign a release basically saying they haven't come into contact knowingly with anyone who's been diagnosed with COVID, that they feel well, blah, blah, blah. So they do that. And then nobody else uses this room except them. So they can sanitize it. They can leave their bells out. Nobody has to put them away and, get close to each other. So this is a way you can either rehearse or, record in a manner that's a little bit safer than what we would traditionally do in our, long straight line, almost shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm going to share later on is a green screen method where a person could stand in front of a green piece of fabric, and you could actually set that up in this room, and after you've practiced a bit, you could record bell ringers, doing their part in front of a green screen, and then you can actually put them in the sanctuary like I am, because I'm in front of a green screen.
Cool.
And so, this could be, you could do a session, even if you're just doing the benediction, that would be something you could do, and then you wouldn't have to have everybody have a bell at their own place with their own recording device, that kind of thing.
Right.
So this is a great picture. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about, I make some suggestions for Christmas Eve about doing a Christmas Eve pilgrimage. So there's a Christmas Eve script that you could do if you're doing online worship, but also creating a special event where people, kind of like an open house situation, where you might have people come between this and this hour, and you'll have musicians in the sanctuary. People can walk up the aisle and then walk out, so they can be in their sanctuary that's all decorated and beautiful for a moment. You could have bells at that point, do something during that time. But I'm wondering also, how are handbells and cold weather? Like if you should have handbells sort of outside for a bit, safely distanced. There's also, I have suggestions for a kind of pilgrimage around the grounds with some no-touch stations. But tell me, does that work to have handbells do just a little bit outside?
I would say as long as it's not like below freezing, you'd probably be okay. I have certainly rung handbells in hot weather. And I'll tell you, on a 4th of July float.
In Texas?
Actually, it was in D.C., which was
okay.
as bad. And the problem with that is when it gets hot, the clappers are made out of like this rubberized stuff. You had to just ring the heck out of the bell just to get it to sound. So if you do ring outdoors and it's cold, you don't need to ring with as much enthusiasm because everything's going to be harder. And so you want to be more gentle. But yeah, you should be able to do that with bells or with chimes. Might sound a little tinny and bright, but
Yeah. Well, you also gave us some suggestions. I'll talk a little bit about our park, porch, and sidewalk sings that we've put together, and you helped us to know where to find, and it'll be in that resource, where to find some of these carols and some easy handbell, even for beginners,
Absolutely.
to go along with that. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for these suggestions. And
can I say just one thing real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
For the people who have no music experience, like they have no idea about music notation, those Ring Along Christmas Favorites, Series 1 and 2, they just have words and notes. You ring when the word is circled, you stop it when it's underlined. It's so simple. Children love to do it. You can give a mom and a kid a book and they can do it together.
Oh, that's so great because we are looking for ways to fill the night with music and light, and that's part of it is to empower people with some resources to just make some music outdoors to fill the night and just to bring some goodwill and cheer to folks during the season. So thank you. That's such an awesome thing. I can see, there are children's handbell sets, like 8 or 9 little handbells in color code, and you could use it with that resource and just have a ball.
Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Stephanie, and thank you for coming on and for your help with these resources.
Well, thank you. I'm blessed to be here.
Great. All right, friends. We are going to move quickly ahead, but I do see in the chat that some folks are starting to talk about choirs and virtual choirs. So everybody take a breath. So I'm going to be showing you the resources that we have created for you that will help you to learn to do this. And I'm going to show you how we are going to crowdsource each other. I know that there are some of you out there in churches where actually getting your folks together and the technology together and having the time, some part-time pastors, that this is just out of the range. So I want to say that what's coming up is the way that we're going to help crowdsource each other. Part of being a part of Worship Design Studio and doing our series is that it comes with community. And one of the things we love so much is that once we start preparing for this, we start sharing resources with each other that we've created, that we've adapted. And so this is going to be true as well. Let's say you don't have any handbells and you don't have any way to do a handbell benediction. Guess what? We're going to be asking people who do have that capability if they're willing to share that so that we can actually use that if you're not able to do it. Part of doing it and learning to do it, we don't want you to just say, oh, great, I'll let somebody else do it right away. You want to pick out things that you can work on that are manageable for you. But also know that we're going to have this crowdsource kind of thing going on. So Jenna, let me just stop before we're going to start a deep dive into visual and media arts and all of these things, the scripts, where to find everything, what to do, the ideas. But before I go there, what an awesome time we just had with these two musicians helping us to get into this series. So copyright work, I just saw that, Jenna. Let me just do that and then you can tell me what else. If we're using some other church's video of a bell choir for streaming. So we created those bell parts, right? And Stephanie created it. And so anything that we create that you use is already, you have permission, copyright permission to use it. And so that would be true even if it's somebody else playing that. All right. So that would go with the anthems too of Mark. Mark has given permission for any of it to be streamed. We want to be mindful on the anthems that we don't do too much sharing because we don't want the publishing companies and then Mark himself to be out some money. But I would still want you to be purchasing some of those anthems. But for all of the things that are unique to us, that are original from us, that we give you the scores, we give you the accompaniment tracks. Those are all, you have the permission to do that, share that, what have you. Jenna, what else?
So going off of that, some folks are wondering where would be the best place to purchase Mark's anthems that we suggest for separate use throughout the series.
Right. There are links in the music document, and I'm going to go through every document. So everything that page you were looking at and things that were underlined are actual links to the place where you purchase it. So you don't have to go hunting for those. We give you links to everything that we suggest. I did see Leslie said, but the performance itself is protected. Permission of the performer's right. Yes, but we're saying that if you upload it from your church to our crowd sharing, you're giving permission for other churches to use it. Otherwise, you wouldn't upload it for others to use. So we'll get to all that when we get into the resource. What else, Jenna?
So some folks were also asking if they don't have a choir, can this music be arranged or would it work with, say, a small quartet or soloists or contemporary bands?
Absolutely. Yes, all of it. and arrange it how you need to with who you have. Mark often works with a band, and so all of his anthems, actually, I have heard him do as band pieces. And they translate very well to that kind of contemporary setting. That's another great reason to use Mark's material, because he is fluid, believe me, fluid in many, many styles. So yes, do what you can with what you have.
And this might be a better question for Marcia, but
Okay.
we have a recording of We Resist, the accompaniment track, but we didn't include the actual sheet music for that. Do you know where that particular one is
Yes, the
available?
link there leads to his website. He has a store on his personal website that has some of the things that have not been published by other publishers, and that's where that link goes.
Wonderful. Let's see here. Working down the list. We've got so many good questions coming in
Okay.
today. This one is related to the flow of the series. Overall, if we use, I think the themes that you suggest in order are hope, love, joy, and peace. But if folks want to do them in a different order, can they rearrange the weeks?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me just say something about that. There is no like ordained, it's not in the Bible, it's not in anybody's official book of worship. I mean, different denominations, you can search this and you'll find different orders of those four things. Those four things are not sort of set in stone. And so the stone that it's set in usually is what churches have done. And so if that's super important and you think people that will just be too distracting if it's a different order than you usually use, then yes, by all means, move it around. I think they're absolutely movable as they are.
Great. Okay, going back to music one more time.
Okay.
For folks who want to help their choirs record parts, is there any accompaniment tracks available for specific parts, or any plans to create those and make them available?
What a great thing to ask. That is one thing that I would love for us to crowdsource. If people who create their own tracks, we're talking practice tracks, or what we call lead tracks. And so if there are people who do that, I have played with the idea of doing that as well from here. But honestly, friends, I need for us to be a community together to help each other do all of these things, because there's a ton of things that I could do on my own, but then I wouldn't have any time to get working on the next series. And I know y'all want me to do that. So this is my plea to the community. Let's see if we can crowdsource this. You can also learn to do those lead tracks. And sometimes it's good to have your own director doing the directing, right? You're used to the way that your folks learn and that kind of thing. And so you might just record your own and learn how to do that, which if you're learning how to edit those videos, that's a great way to learn to edit before you get a whole bunch of stuff from your folks, is to create those lead tracks. All right.
Wonderful. Okay, that covers most of the things I'm seeing for music right now.
Yay. Okay, so I'm going to dive in. I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to go and take a look at each one of the resources. First of all, I want to say that when I say a fully scripted series, for those of you who are new to the Worship Design Studio and my fully scripted series, what that means is that I create scripts that have rubrics. You see the red there. That means that that's directions about what's possible for you to do, just in terms of what's happening in the space or that kind of thing. And then I have all the leader parts, so all of the lead-ins, all of the sort of, I think of worship leaders as spiritual directors. So what I'm trying to do is to model for you, how can we introduce a song or introduce the worship in a way that helps us deeply appreciate and go on a deep spiritual journey. So I have all of that in there. I have all the words to all of the scripture. Of course, if it's, I think I use the Common English Bible throughout here. If you want a different translation, you use your own translation. If you want to tweak what I have written for leaders, you do that. All of these are supposed to be adapted by you for your context. So that's why we give you both a PDF version so that you can just pull that up on your computer, look at it, review it. especially because our new website, you can pull everything up on your phone. It's super easy to just click on that PDF so you can review it on your phone. But it also comes in a downloadable Word format, because that's what you're going to use to tweak it for your use. You're going to delete those things you're not doing. You're going to add what you are doing. You're going to change what you need to change. And those PDFs are always there in case you go, now what was the original? You always have that so you can see the original. So it comes in both of those formats for every one of the scripts. What I want to suggest to you is that to get a beginning look at the series, read the overview, the scriptures and synopses, and my adaptations and protocols documents first before you start looking at the scripts. Because once you read that, you have a point of view, a lens to look through to understand what you're seeing in the scripts. I know it's tempting to just go right to the scripts. What is it? What are we singing on the first Sunday? But I really want you to get a sense of the whole, and that's for everybody. I would say visual artists, even though you may not be in the weeds with all the scripts, read the overview, read the scriptures and synopsis, steep yourself in the material so that you can get a real sense of the theme that will help you do your work. All right, I am going to share my screen, and we're going to go into the Worship Design Studio, into the series, so that we can go through some of these pieces. So here we are in the Worship Design Studio in the series. When you are a Worship Design Studio subscriber, you will not see the price here. You will already have access to it and access to everything. If you don't, if you can't get into it, it means that you have not gone through the steps you need to go through to get fully into your subscription material. So contact us if you have that problem. If you have purchased it and you still see a price on there, what it means is that you haven't gone through and clicked the link to get access to it. But you can also just go ahead and purchase that if you haven't done that yet, right in the Worship Design Studio. So let's start. Here's that unpacking video. This is a really good, I do a little 2-3 minute video to tell you how to download, where to find everything. That's a really great place to start. And this is also the page where I will put the recording of this webinar, so that if you have to leave any time now before now and the end of this webinar, you can go back, or you can send your folks there. We'll have a timeline there so that you can see, oh, visual folks want to go right to the visual thing when we get to that. Okay, so that's the start here. Download the series, friends. This is where you go and you click on this link that says Hightail, and you will see a down arrow when you get there. You don't have to create an account or anything. You just click on that down arrow and it will download everything in a zip file to your computer, and then you'll click on that zip file and it will open up on your computer. That's how you get everything in one fell swoop. All right, so that's definitely the place to do that. Even though you can see everything in these individual sections, you want to just download everything so you have it on your computer there. This is where that overview, scriptures and synopses, this is what I'm saying, that you can just click on your computer and see it really easily. If you don't want to download it, that kind of thing, you can see it right there. All right, adaptations and protocols, friends. This is, I spent a lot of time on this, and I consulted many people about protocols and adaptations. I'm on an ecumenical group that has been studying for several months now, and keeping up with the CDC's recommendations. And the truth is that we are in all different parts of this country and other countries actually who are using this. And so your situation will be different than someone else's. So I tried to put in here all kinds of adaptations, many different kinds of adaptations for you to think about how you are going to do this. So what I want to say here is that keep coming back to the activity feed in the resource in Worship Design Studio. Even if you've downloaded everything and you don't need anything else, keep coming back to the activity feed, which I'll show you in a moment, because I'm going to keep updating and telling you what we're hearing about as we get closer to Advent, hearing updated protocols should they become available. All right, so adaptation possibilities. I start super low tech. What are you going to do with this series and these materials if you're simply printing these out as a devotional that you're giving, mailing, even in the hard copy mail, as your worship? Because you have people who are not technologically savvy, they can't even hit a YouTube button. I give you examples for that, for translating for that. Devotional audio, right? If you're going to create an audio, and you can do like a phone or an audio experience together. So here's a link to some free Conference Pro conference call service, sermon by phone, podcast, that kind of thing. So if you're doing audio only, how would you adapt these scripts? Worship buddies. This is an idea of if you have a few people, just a few people who don't have the technology, how can you team them up with a younger person or someone who can bring their device and show a recording to them at some point? Just thinking out of the box in terms of how we get things to people. Online live and private worship, such as Zoom meetings. So I have suggestions about adaptations for that. Pre-recorded worship posted to a video sharing app like YouTube or Vimeo. So I give some suggestions for that. Adapted in-person worship, recorded or to post or live stream. Again, you can see there's many, many pages. I tried to think of every scenario and every way that if it was me, I would adapt the materials that I have given you to that. So protocols and some links to some studies to help you understand that. All right, so that is a really important thing to look at before you start diving in and making decisions about how you're going to do it. Here's the crowdsourcing feed explanation. And one of the things I say in here is that we're moving away from Facebook groups. If you've done our series before, we've had Facebook groups where people would share things, upload pictures, and that was fantastic. It's one of the reasons why when we changed our Worship Design Studio platform, we went to one that could be more of a social space, because there are many reasons to be moving away from Facebook in this time. Not everybody uses Facebook, not everybody wants to use Facebook, and so we wanted a safe place where you could do your sharing. And so the activity feed, and I'm going to look over here to the left, and when you're in the series, here's your left-hand menu. When you go into activity feed, you're going to see that people have already started to post some things and some ideas, and that's how you're going to post. You click into there, you can type something in, you can add a picture, you can add a link to a video, you can add an embedded link. So in other words, if you had a PDF or a Word document that you wanted to share, you would attach that file. If you wanted to add multiple things to the same post, you're going to expand to article, you're going to add a title, and then you can, every time there's a plus, you can add another thing, right? And then add. We want you to be using this activity feed so that we can be sharing with each other. Now, let's go back to the table of contents. The way that we're asking people to share, if you did videos, if you did material that you want to give people in raw form, so in other words, an MP4 or an MOV or a MP3 or whatever it is, and you want people to actually have the file, we have to do that in a file sharing system because you can't upload it right into the activity feed. You could upload a video of it, post it to YouTube, for example, but the raw data, you want to come here, and we have given you a hightail uplink right here, and that's where you would upload to our uplink, and then we will create a space that will live right here where you can go and see what people have uploaded. Now, this just in, I'm going to give 4 community awards. Full year subscriptions to 4 churches who, up until November 11th, contribute things for other churches to use. I want to say thank you. So we'll have 4 awards. Everybody will get a gift who uploads something, but 4 churches will get a full year subscription. And so it's incentive. I'll just be honest about it. It's incentive to help each other. I know that you want to do it out of the goodness of your heart as well, but it doesn't hurt to have a little thank you. So everybody who uploads will get a gift from me, and 4 will get an award, a big thank you award for extraordinary contributions. So just want you to know that. I really, like I said, I want to start working on the next series for you. And even though I could do some beautiful video pieces of the Isaiah scriptures, I would love it if you all would do some of that work, because I have begun to teach you all how to do that. And I would love for you to begin to share that with each other. Okay, I'm a teacher who loves to give you some fish, but I also want to teach you how to fish and then share it with each other. How biblical is that? Let's all be on the Sea of Galilee shore and share breakfast. Okay. Okay, so weekly scripts. Let's take a look at Advent 1. I'm going to look at the PDF version here. And here is what I was talking about in terms of scripts, in terms of rubrics, everything you need to know. Now, I did these scripts, my friends, as if, because hopefully one day you will, some people will be using it in a post-COVID, non-pandemic time, but you are going to want to adapt this for whatever you're doing. I also made some suggestions, keeping COVID in mind, like the peace. Invite people to turn toward each other and bow to each other, offer a peace sign, or sign language for peace, which is like this. So at a distance, right, without moving out of the place where you are in your pew. So I do have, even though this could be used in non-COVID times, I have made some of those suggestions as we go. So the scriptures are there, the witness to anthems, and of course, if you're going to change that, then you'll want to change the intros. The Gospels. Friends, the way that I did the scripture readings for this series, and you'll see this in the overview, you'll read all about it, but I used Isaiah reading throughout, and then I also used the first chapter of each of the Gospel texts. And I did this because the first chapter of each of those Gospel texts is our origin story, right? It is the way that the Gospel writer introduces Jesus to the community to whom the Gospel writer is writing. And so that's what Advent is really about. We're being reintroduced to the incarnational faith that we have. And so I used readings from the first chapter of each one of the Gospels. I don't do them in order. You'll notice Mark is first, but Mark wrote first. So I do them in the order they were written, not necessarily the order that they are in the Bible. So you can see that I have lots of things for you to consider, including sort of an affirmation of faith, or litany of belief, I call it, since it's I believe, even when, what do we believe? And so this is a place where you could get creative. Your own team could work on these couplets, I believe that, and then list something that is a confession or a lament. And then the opposite, it's opposite. And I believe that, and then a prophetic word of change. So I believe that we have looked the other way too many times, and I believe that we are capable of facing reality and working for change. So you see how that's a couplet. And so they're easy to write, even though for every service, I give you some examples that you could just use if it works for your community. But again, every community is different, every context is different, and so it may be that you need to write your own that specifically fit your community. Here's that beautiful stillness song that Mark gave us a little insight into. And so again, you record this once. You don't have to be recording for every week, but you record it once, and then it is the intro to prayer. And I have left prayers for you to discern how you want to do that. It's really important to have both familiar and new, and this balance, because we have kind of a new way of doing the opening of worship. Some of these things might feel really new to your folks, and so I want something that feels really familiar. And ways of doing prayers of the people in the way you usually do them is one of those touchstones of something really familiar. So you decide how you want to do that. The doxology, if you want to do a doxology, if you are doing a doxology, if you're doing online worship, you may just be thanking people for their ongoing offerings and not having a doxology. But if you do, I chose a tune that would go with the word believe. So this is the tune of give thanks with a grateful heart, right? And so I said, believe with a hopeful heart, believe and shine your light. Believe because the song we sing is song for all. And let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what our God has done for us. Believe. Right? So it's a familiar tune for many, but with the words tweaked a little bit so that it goes along with our theme. And then the last song is what I call a carol of resistance. Oh, I loved doing this research, folks, about what carols were written in times of difficulty that were a direct commentary about something difficult. And so that is, I wrote out a little bit of an introduction to each one of these so people could hear the story. And it's just really, I'll never hear some of these very familiar carols in the same way again. Here's a benediction. It is the same benediction for each week, and it's based on the Advent theology of waiting. We wait for justice, but we do not wait to work for change. We wait for restored health, but we do not wait to work to heal. Right? So it is, yes, we wait, and yet we also are called to work in that waiting to create a better world. And so you'll see, and so my friends, like bells ringing out the news. There's a great time for those bells, that handbell benediction to begin, that beginning part that repeats. And then it finishes, raise your voices and repeat after me. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Amen. And then handbell benediction. Now, I'm going to talk about this when we get to the visuals, but you'll see that I have a rubric here, move the candle from the center to the wreath, corner of sanctuary or room. So one of the ideas that I have is that the Advent candle for the week gets lit in the center of the sanctuary, whether you're an adapted in person or you're doing this in what we call B-roll, which I'll talk about in a moment. And it stays there for the service, and part of the benediction is that it goes to where it's going to live. Now, my idea is that the entire sanctuary is the Advent wreath, and so we have the four corners created with a visual installation that would have luminaries and poinsettias and a place for the candle, and so that eventually we would be surrounded by the wreath. Right? Whether we're there physically in the space or whether we imagine ourselves there. And you could also have people do that at home. They could have a candle that they light at the beginning of worship, as we have in the rubrics. And then they could create 4 places, say in the living room, where you're going to have 4 different candles that get lit then over the course of Advent. So creating a way for people to do at home what you're doing in the sanctuary, whether that's live streamed or just in pre-recorded video that you make. All right, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and see if we have any questions going on about scripts and about sort of the overview and that kind of thing. If there are questions about visuals and media, hang on to those for just a moment because that's where we're going next.
We do have a question. I'm not sure how much you've elaborated on this yet, but can you talk a little bit more about the Christmas Eve pilgrimage?
Yes. Let me just go there. In fact, before I go there, Jenna, are there other questions that I need to get to that are not about Christmas Eve or Blue Christmas?
Most of the questions we've got come in are still in regards to music and
okay.
how to do all that.
Okay, great. So let's keep going. All right. So let us go to the scripts for Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve script, we have a couple of things. One is a script that looks very much like a worship service, right? So for those of you who are able to do adapted in-person worship, and maybe you're going to do several of them so that you can have just a few people at a time. You may be exhausted if you do that. Or you may be doing this service online, and then having a pilgrimage during the evening. That's a little bit easier and less exhausting for leaders. So there is that script. And then I have a Christmas Eve pilgrimage experience. When you look at that, you're going to see that one of the things that I've suggested is that people throughout the season make these luminaries, right? And then they bring them prior to Christmas Eve so that you can create some pathways and create just some beautiful things on the grounds of your church ways to come and walk through and have this beautiful mystical experience. Now, you can create paths. You can also create stations, okay? And these are no-touch stations. So normally I would be inviting people to do thus and such at this station, write something, but we don't want to do this. We want no-touch stations this year. And so I created some stations here that go through the narrative. So we start with Mary being visited by an angel. Says she will bear a very special child who will be a light to the people. She says, may it be so. Are there things in your life that are waiting to be born? And all you need to do is say yes. So these are reflection questions, right, for people to reflect upon. You might want to create a little one-pager that has these so that people can take them home with them so they can continue to reflect on that. And it goes through the whole story. So there's Mary and Joseph, there's Elizabeth, there's Mary and Joseph on their journey to Bethlehem, there's the child born in the stable, Jesus swaddled. So it's all reflection questions that have to do with a part of the story, which actually takes people through the story so they can go on the story with their pilgrimage. You could, if you wanted to, have part of the pilgrimage outside. Then when you get to the manger, that last one could be in the sanctuary on the chancel. And so there you could do a path around your grounds that leads then to the front door. And then people go in, they walk through the sanctuary. Maybe you have your organist playing, your pianist, some of your handbells, or maybe you switch it out over like if you have a 2-hour open house, let's say, so that people can come through and you can spread folks out so that there's not too many people in there at a time. But that manger, that final station could be in the sanctuary, and that's your final destination. How beautiful would that be? They could stand briefly there at the manger before moving out of the sanctuary to let the next person come in. This is going to be especially poignant if people have not been in their sanctuaries at all, which is true for many, many churches. And for many people, even if you're doing adapted in-person worship, it's not safe, but they might be able to come out if they know that they won't be in an enclosed space with very many people for very long. You could create a large outdoor wreath. You could create 4 stations of hope, love, joy, and peace. And so you could have people walking around this big, huge wreath, 4 stations, and that could be the pilgrimage. So I've put in there what you could have at these 4 different stations in that way. You'll adapt it to your grounds and what you can do. Another idea that I have in here is a crush collection. So I have a little manger set, right, that I've had since I was a child. And I get it out faithfully every year. And you may have a lot of people with that. So one of the ideas in previous years I've had is to create sort of a museum exhibit at the church that people could walk around and see all of these sets. But that's not a good idea because that would put people in too close a proximity, too much handling stuff. So you could create a video compilation or a photo compilation. People could send pictures or videos of their nativity sets, and you could put music with it. Let's say you have your children's choir singing Away in a Manger to it, or whatever you want to do, but that's a wonderful way to get some more participation. Light my candle. This is, we're not going to be able to stand side by side to light one another's candles this Christmas, but you could create a virtual lighting video by having people record themselves extending the tip of an unlit candle out of the frame. So if you're looking at me in the frame and I go out of the frame with my candle, I light it, I bring it back, then you get this sense that you are getting to do that. Be creative with it, friends. I know you're going to think of a lot of great ideas, and you're going to share that in the activity feed to share that with others. I can't wait to see what you come up with. I mentioned this earlier. We are creating Park Porch and Sidewalk Sing caroling resources. We are about finished with those. They will be out within the next week or 2. And they are accompaniment tracks, so karaoke tracks that you can sing to, songbooks, as Stephanie said, some suggestions for using handbells along with that, and some narration to go with that. There's a 30-minute set, so if you're setting up in one location, say go to a park in your community, set up in one location, spread apart in safely distanced ways, masked, and sing there, or there's 10-minute versions if you're going to go house to house. And we have lots of protocol suggestions in the leader guide and how you can safely do this in a safely distanced way. So that's my Christmas Eve suggestions. Like I said, those are just there to pique your ideas, and you're going to adapt it to what will work at your place. Let me just point out the blue Christmas ritual. I put this out in a public way earlier, a couple weeks ago, because I also think you could use this litany of losses that I have written for All Saints. So you could use it twice. You could use it at All Saints, and then you could use it on a Longest Night or Blue Christmas service. And what I've done is I've given you ideas about perhaps having a separate Christmas tree outside the church that has only blue lights on it, and you would safely distance outside for a very brief ritual of remembering those that we have lost. And you could have that. You can buy. I researched this. You can buy blue-colored LED lights. In all of these luminaries, friends, we are suggesting not real flames, right? So many good reasons to do that. Plus, I'm in California, so I'm especially worried about flame. We've got lots of DIY kinds of ideas about creating luminaries for that, and we're going to get into more visual arts here in a moment. But here's that litany for losses. And basically what I did is I thought, we have had so many different losses. Loss of life. So it starts with loss of life. It's a repeat after me litanies, and it's very brief so that we don't have a lot of unison speaking, and you don't have to have paper at all to do this. Loss of livelihood, that's happened for many people. Loss of love, in terms of the hate that we have seen proliferate in these days. Loss of liveliness. So, and our spirits, our liveliness in our spirits, we've been dealing with a lot. So I think Blue Christmas could be quite a really important time for folks this holiday season. So I really hope that this ritual suggestion and this litany will be very, very helpful to you. So then Sunday after Christmas script and Children's Time to Shine scripts. In the scripts, I have created a time for children, and if you're doing adapted in-person worship, they will not be coming up front. They will be staying where they are, so adults could do this as well. But basically, 100 years ago, this little light of mine, it's the 100th year anniversary. Can you believe it? It's also a very important song that was used in the Civil Rights Movement. And so it goes perfectly with our theme of appreciating the power of music in difficult times. And so there are videos you can learn the sign language. And so you're learning a verse every Sunday in the Children's Time. And so that is what is here in this Children's Time to Shine scripts. Communion prayer, and I do a separate one because some communities do communion every week and some communities only do it once a month. And so it is there. It's based on an ecumenical format that is very similar to what many different denominations use, because we have 12, 13, 14 different denominations represented in the Worship Design Studio. So of course you are going to adapt it for your own use. And I use this lovely song by Jim Burklow, Deeper Love. That's Oh Wally Wally, the Welsh folk tune. And he has given us permission to live stream this. And so I have woven that into this liturgy. This is one of my favorite verses. Now Mary sings her birthing song till every voice can sing along, and voices weak will rise up strong. Her choir is one where all belong. So perfect. And because it's a familiar tune, now Mary sings her birthing song till every voice can sing along, and voices weak will rise up strong. Her choir is one where all belong. All right, so that is something you can put into your worship whenever it is that you do communion. All right, I'm going to go right into music resources and virtual choir webinars, because I know we have lots of questions about that. And then I'll stop, take questions, and then we'll do visual and media, and that will be, and we'll do a little bit on the film festival. But I'm going to do a separate thing on leading the film festival where we can really get into the films. And Mark Burrows, who created the Children's Time, the children's version of the film festival with children's films, I'm going to be doing a recorded interview with him next week, and we will post that in here so that you can get your children's education folks and get more ideas about leading that during this series as well. So music resources, friends. This music resources document is where you want to start. It gives you an overview of all of the materials that we give you, some of the things about congregational song. This is something I want to point out. Chuck Bell, who is a frequent collaborator in the Worship Design Studio, has graciously been working on accompaniment tracks and vocal versions of all of the hymns and songs that we suggest for this series so that you can use those if you don't have an accompanist. This is something that he has done for a lot of our series because we have many very small churches, and having an accompanist who can do it and record is something that's really, sometimes you need some help. So at chuckbellmusic.com, you will see that right there at the top, learn more. That's going to be out mid-October. And he says it's going to be $12. I mean, come on, friends. Chuck always is just so affordable. $12, but you also need to buy his streaming license, which is $20 one-time fee to do any of his music and stream it online. And we want to honor that and honor Chuck for his work. So if you are a church that could really use help with the music, that is something that will be very, very helpful at chuckbellmusic.com. So the Threshold Moment song, this is where I go through it. I'm going to show you a video of me sort of doing that in just a moment when I go back to, back to my slides. And some things about underscoring, which I always do in my series, but I do less of it in this series because of the difficulties of sometimes hearing. That if we're in person hearing and having a lot of things going on with masks and being separated and that kind of thing. So, certainly I use that in my recordings. When I create videos, I create underscoring of music. And so I do a lot of teaching you how to do that and how to use that there in those links. Here's those anthem links that I talked about earlier. Each one goes to the publisher where you can purchase that and the videos to see an example of those. Here's a little bit about the prayer song and the benediction, and here's some more of those handbell resources that we pointed to earlier. Preludes and postludes. I have not suggested specific ones for you, but here's an idea. Once you get some park, porch, and sidewalk sings caroling going on, how cool would it be to video some of that and then play those as preludes and postludes so that you can people can see that, especially those who haven't been able to go out and see those or be part of it. That would be a lot of fun. So, all right, creating a virtual choir. Friends, we did an 11 webinar series on how to create virtual choirs. And here's the fun thing. Many of our Worship Design Studio subscribers have been trying this out over the last 3 weeks that we've been doing these webinars. And even though they're beginners, even though they are they're not perfect and they're not fancy, they are amazing. So I want to highly suggest that what you do is, let me go to virtual choir webinars. It's right there. I added this morning an overview of the session so you can see what's in each one of these 11 sessions and decide which ones you want to watch. All right. But you can watch all of them if you want to, and all of these blue lead to links where you can get to the recording. And because you're Worship Design Studio subscribers and or you have purchased this series, these are all free to you. Now, I want to point out the wrap-up webinar. This is a really good webinar because it was at the end, I showed some of the videos that people have been learning to do. And you will see, they're not perfect, but they are awesome. So you can learn this. Somebody can learn this. So give yourself some time to play with it. And it's not expensive. A lot of these things are free. Or maybe ask somebody for a special gift to help with this part of it. Even if you're doing at-home, in-person worship, in-person adapted worship. There's so many terminology here. You will be still using recordings. And it's a great time to do it. If you don't have screens and projection in your sanctuary, now is the time to set up a temporary way of doing that, even if it's a projector in the front row pointed at a wall. You are still going to want to use that kind of thing so that you can have more participation and less people singing, less people speaking, moving around, and more cohesion between those who are at home who cannot get out and those who are in the space. So Jenna, I'm going to stop here and let's get to some questions. I know visual media folks, just hang on. You're doing great. I'm going to get to you. And of course, you can watch the recording later and go right to the visual media if you need to. But we're taking our time so that we can get to your questions. All right, Jenna, bring them on.
We've got a couple more regarding copyright permissions.
Okay.
Someone has checked the song Give Thanks, and it looks like that might not be covered by one license or, whatever permissions they have in place. So what do you suggest for seeking out permissions for songs that we did not provide? Awesome. So for folks who do have their streaming license, they have permission to do things, but still get dinged for copyright violations by YouTube.
Right.
Is there a way to kind of cut down on that and prevent it from getting in the way?
Well, number one, it's not going to get in the way because what it means is that you can't monetize. So you can't add ads to your worship service on YouTube. It's not going to prevent you from that getting to be played. It's even if you have the license, YouTube is, scrubbing and seeing, when things pop up, but they don't have enough personnel to check everything and then get in touch with you and say, do you have the license? So even though you want to definitely put your licenses in your descriptions, you want to make sure that people know you have the license to this, but you're going to get dinged anyway. It just means you can't monetize. And I don't think many of you are monetizing anyway, your services. So that's really what that's about.
Okay, I think that covers all the questions we've had so far. We can keep going.
Wow, awesome. So again, friends, I want to say that if you are playing with the virtual choir things, I want to encourage you to be encouraging to others. Maybe a team up. We could actually, just put a request in the activity feed. Maybe we can team people up who are using the same programs. You can tutor each other. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to utilize the fact that we are hundreds of people, hundreds of churches doing this series together. We just must take advantage of that. Let me share my slides with you again and go over some of the music things that I want to share with you. That's just a little more how-to on this. So this is, let me go back. This is me doing the threshold moment so that you can look at your script, look at the music, the score, and see how that fits together. So let me do this, play this for you. I believe in the sun. I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining. Choir joins. I believe in the sun. I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining. The place without light, the place without light, the depth of night, the depth of night, the pit of unknowing, the pit of unknowing. The choir begins with their oohs. Ooh, the pastor says, Holy One, we thank you for the glimpses we catch of your gift of untiring hope, even in the midst of fear, of challenge, of struggle, even when our view is obscured by clouds of doubt. Ignite the flame of hope within us, that we might glow with its brilliance from the inside out. I believe in the sun. I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining. Help us face this bleak night of the soul and embrace it as a womb of rebirth. Amen. You're invited to light your Advent 1 candle of hope at this time. That last part, you can see that the ooze happened, and I couldn't be the whole choir. That's the part where the choir has some different parts: soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and so that the ooze happened, and then in the score you will see it says the final words are read. So there's indications in the score when the pastor or whoever is reading those words do that. And of course, if you're doing that with the virtual choir, you are using your video editing program, and you have had the choir record. What you want to do when the choir records is you want to prompt them in their speaking, right? Because we want to record that as part of their singing. So let me show you a little video of me pretending to do a lead track. The place without light, the place without light, the depth of night, the depth of night, the pit of unknowing, the pit of unknowing. High-end green screen. You can actually, it's just the color that we need. So you could actually get these plastic tablecloths in this color. This is a 12-pack on Amazon for $15. And you could have this on the wall behind your choir members. And then you could use, we're about to talk about media and visuals and the use of a photo shoot of your sanctuary. This is a picture of my video editing program. And I put in that picture of my sanctuary, and I put in the score, the music. So, of course, I don't have the choir one, but you would have your choir one in there. And then you can see that I put my green screen, and it was just me, so that you're just going to see me in multiples. I put that in, and then there is a setting on your video editing program where you can make the green screen disappear, and then you're on top of whatever is this picture. So let me show you what that looks like. Kind of fun. So, excuse me, the solo happens. You might have the soloist face on that in the center maybe. Or you might just show a video of the acolyte coming in during this time. And lighting the Advent candle. And then your choir comes in. Don't you love it? So that is an idea. So you see I'm using perspective, because if I moved Marcia, the third Marcia, up next to the first Marcia, it would be smaller. So I'm making them smaller. So you would line your sanctuary. So have fun with it, friends. See what you can do. Green screens, having everybody sing in front of a green screen allows you the opportunity to put whatever background you want to. Now you might not want to get that fancy, and that's certainly, an optional thing, but it is, I just wanted to let you know, it's kind of fun to play with. All right, so let's get to visuals and media. So let's go back to our materials. All right, visual and media arts. Friends, it's about luminaries, and more luminaries. Here's the visual and media arts document. And here's our table of contents, lots of things. About luminaries, about using a photo shoot of your empty sanctuary, Advent wreath lighting, making Advent wreaths for home use, more about the Christmas Eve pilgrimage and getting ready for that, sending people out with luminaries for the park porch and sidewalk sings, virtual choir, virtual editing, series trailer, lots of things. But let's take a look at these luminaries. You can buy luminaries that have some designs on them, but you can also make them. And so we have lots of links where we have found like DIY luminaries, a board on Pinterest. We've put some on our own Pinterest board. Here's a video tutorial about how to create simple paper bag luminaries. These are things that you can get people to start doing now. And definitely you want to take your luminaries and you want to go into your sanctuary. You want to, visual artists, keep creating visuals as if people were going to be in the sanctuary, even if they're not, so that you can then take photos and videos and use that in your worship. Our brains love to be taken somewhere else. That's what we do when we watch a movie and so whatever's on the screen, it takes us into that place. Then if we actually add three-dimensional, so let's say that we invite families to make their own luminaries, and we invite them to, maybe you decide, oh, this is kind of fun. You're going to think of extra things. But I just thought, what if you decided to have people repeat the prayer from Sunday worship throughout the week at like 8 o'clock every night or right before bedtime. And so kids could turn on their luminaries. You could have a prayer before bedtime and make that kind of a ritual. Or at 8 o'clock every night, you tell people or 7 o'clock or whenever, it's dark earlier by then, put your luminaries in your windows, put them on your front porch so that your neighbors begin to see that at 7 o'clock every night, we're filling the night with music and light. You're going to come up with a ton of ideas and you're going to post that in the activity feed and you're going to give other churches ideas. This is going to be so much fun to see how this develops. Now, our logo features an empty sanctuary. I did what I'm telling you. I took luminaries and I went into the chapel at the seminary where I teach. I didn't do anything else except those luminaries, and I took photos. I put a purple filter over this. There's all kinds of ways you can dress up photos. But one of the really cool things that we're doing now is we're using Canva. So you can click on this link in the visual arts document and it will take you to the template for the logo. And you can click on use template, and if you have an account in Canva, which you can easily get, and I highly suggest it. It is amazing. We've been taking our Worship Design Studio subscribers through some tutorials in this, and it is amazing for making posters and memes and bulletin covers and so many logos and so many things. You can even put video together in there, very cursory, so I wouldn't suggest that as a video editing program. But what this does is it's brought up the template for you to adapt for your sanctuary. So what you would do is I would move this. This is a little filter. You see those bubbles down there? I put that over that to create some more light effects. Just move that slightly, and then you highlight the church photo behind that. You delete that and you put your own church photo in there, your own photo of your own sanctuary in that. And then you move, you could keep that filter if you wanted to, get rid of it, but you still have then, our logo lettering. You could change this to your website there. You could change this to your church logo, but it's all right there for you to use as a template and immediately change it to your church. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see what you will do and what your sanctuaries will look like, and all of your luminaries and that kind of thing. So that is a very cool part of what we're offering in the Worship Design Studio these days. So back to our document. Okay, so here is where we have said what our fonts are that we used, what our color palette was for some of our logos and things, some keywords for searches. So if you're looking for your own photos and things in some of our favorite royalty-free places, video clips, you can use some of these keywords. Here's a little bit about Advent wreath lighting. And so I talk here about, putting your Advent Christmas, just decking out your sanctuary, whether you're going to be in there or not. And especially if you're going to have a walk through pilgrimage Christmas Eve, how wonderful will it be to use photos and video clips of that and throughout Advent, and then people get to see it and be there in the flesh on Christmas Eve. How fun is that? Some ideas for Advent wreath lighting at home, different ways you can make fun and easy Advent wreath kinds of things. Some more about that Christmas Eve pilgrimage we already talked about. And then the virtual choir, the links to learning about how to do that is there. Some video editing links, some links to me teaching about video editing and how I do that. And really it comes down to just some very basic skills that you need to do it, and that's all you need. There's a whole lot of fancy things you can do, but once you get the basic skills, it's actually really fun to do. And then some of our some tutorials for different programs, video editing programs. And then here is series trailer. This is the trailer we showed at the beginning of this webinar. And what I have given you in the downloadable materials is I have taken the video footage of me walking down the aisles slow-mo in my chapel. I've taken that out. I've given you a version that you can put in your own video editing program and then put your own sanctuary in it so that you can customize your trailer as well. We just want you to be able to really minister to your folks and have their space be part of what you do. But if you want to use the space, the chapel that I have there, and you don't want to mess with it, please do, right? Again, up to you. All right, these are places you can find royalty-free photos and video clip resources and all the references. Jenna is the one who puts this visual and media arts document together every time, and I'm so deeply grateful for her work in this. Let me share a couple more visual things, and then we'll take questions about that, and we'll almost be done. So let's go back to my keynote, and let me show you just a couple of things. Here we go. Here's from my photo shoot. Let's see. Let me make sure you can see. Yeah, you can see that, right? So I just made one little corner. I went at night so that I could get some night shots. I put these luminaries together, put a candle there, put some poinsettias in there and put them in ways that they would be silhouetted against the light. And I did a photo shoot, right? So I took lots and lots of different photos that I can use in many ways. So one of the things we can do is get also video, what we call B-roll of the visual. So visual team, once you have it set, then maybe the media folks come in who are going to do the video editing, and they come in and they take some shots. Let's see this one that I have here. Let me play it. And this is not slow-mo. This is pretty fast. I did that because it's really hard unless you have a tripod and a steady hand to get steady video if you're trying to do it slow-mo yourself. But our cameras actually and our video editing programs for sure can slow that down. So you can make it whatever length and whatever timing that you want. The point is just to get some video footage. And then I could play that. I could insert that into a song, an anthem, all kinds of places. I can also create templates for backgrounds. So I just did a zoom on that photo that I did. I made the poinsettia silhouette big enough that I could actually have room to put some words for singing on it. because white letters on black background is the best way for the eye to take in the words. And so as you get more used to taking photos for backdrops, you'll have an eye towards, oh, I need to get a close-up of that poinsettia because it's going to be a dark surface that I can put white letters on, right? So that's why it's really good if the people who are going to be making the slides are also the ones who are taking the pictures. Or visual folks, visual teams, you just learn to take some things that your media folks love, and maybe you're the one and the same person. So those are some ways that you can, take video and photo shoot of your sanctuary and start working on that. So, all right, Jenna, visual and media questions.
We got a couple of questions asking about the video editing program that you use.
Okay, well, I personally use something called ScreenFlow. It's not free. I think it's $129, but it's not an annual subscription, so you just buy it and you have it. Sometimes they have upgrades that you have to pay for, but I've been using it for many, many years, and it's a pretty simple program. It doesn't have a super ton of bells and whistles, but I like it because of that. Because I can create a lot of great things without a lot of bells and whistles. Everything I did, for example, for all the videos I did for our summer series, Beguiled by Beauty, done right in that ScreenFlow. Now, if I was going to be doing virtual choirs, I would probably use an audio program first, like we suggested in our webinars, that's not ScreenFlow, because I can't do a lot of tweaking of sound in ScreenFlow. I would probably, use one of the other free programs, easy to use programs that's just for audio, to mix all my voices together and then export a master audio from that program and then put it in my ScreenFlow and then put my videos on there. That is a key thing that we learned in these virtual choir webinars that just was awesome. I wish I had known about it when we did Calm and Bright, because I put all of those remember those of you who are longtime Worship Design Studio members? Oh my gosh, we did Calm and Bright, the 200th anniversary of Silent Night, and you all sent in choir versions and band versions of our song, and I put them together, and oh my gosh, hours and hours, because I didn't know that I could actually tweak the audio in another program first. That would have saved me like a ton of time, because then you're just on the video, you're using muted audio of the video, and so if you're a tiny bit off, it doesn't matter because your audio sounds great. So I use ScreenFlow, but there's a lot of them out there, and it's just really what you get used to. That's what's going to be the easiest.
Yes, got a question that just came through. Does ScreenFlow work for Mac as well as PC? It actually only works for Mac.
That's right.
For PC, you're going to want to look for another option.
That's right. So there are, if you look at the virtual choir webinars, there are actually several different ones, and Worship Design Studio members in our subscriber group, we did a couple of tutorials, and people showed us some different programs that they love. Movavi is one video editor that a lot of people like, especially for virtual choirs. I think that's the one I would use if I was going to do virtual choirs. But there's also other ones that are for PC and Mac, or PC or Mac. So you'll want to just do that research. But all of that is look at the overview of our virtual choir webinars, and we say which ones are for which platform.
Yes, I see a couple other questions just coming through the chat about, some recommendations. So you'll want to check out that site to see those.
Yeah, definitely click on that virtual choir webinars link, watch the overview, because that will tell you a lot in a short amount of time. So you don't have to wade through all of the webinars to find your answers about which one is for Mac, which is for PC, that kind of thing.
All right, we have a question about, we are looking for ideas to help families create a holy space at home during Advent. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, how about luminaries? No, that's actually really, honestly, that is a really cheap, easy, fun, customizable way. One of the DIY things that I find is really fun is to use hole punch on paper bags to make, dots for light to shine through. How fun is that? Even the smallest child can help with that. So, creating sacred space, what you want to suggest to folks is that you do something unique for the worship service that's different than your everyday life. So if your screen is in the living room, and it's usually the screen you watch everything on, TV, that you want to create, maybe you set up, maybe you light during the Advent lighting, you have your Advent candle. There's this wonderful, way early in pandemic, I was doing a virtual online worship webinar. Shelley Walters, our guest expert for youth and children and small group things, was on there with me, and she showed me a picture. She showed us all a picture of yoga mats, the use of yoga mats as like places for children to sit. Sort of that's where their place to sit is for worship, right? And so you create these sacred boundaries, sacred space that makes it different than just, what you're doing all the time, just watching your movie at night. Have something special. We used this during the summer series, and I have now these tiny chimes, and we had people ring chimes at the beginning, or you could have a bell, a small bell, or here's a tiny little singing bowl. Oh my gosh, I love the singing bowl so much. And it sounds great. So something that helps to set apart time and space, that says now we're in a different place, especially if you have luminaries and you can maybe turn those luminaries on in your space. Maybe you have enough of them that you ring the space with that. So really setting apart that time. Try to start setting that up before worship starts so that you're not rushing to do that, but that you get your family to help you create that sacred space together, even if you are doing low tech, where you are doing it on the phone, a conference call, or you send people just a paper to read as their worship. You want to encourage them to do these ritual actions that bring a three-dimensional embodied sense to being in worship right where you are.
All right, that is all the questions that I see for visuals right now.
Wow. Well, friends, I just cannot wait to see what you will create. And that is why we really want, as soon as you start creating things, or as soon as you start having ideas, go ahead and let's get that activity feed going, because we will be highlighting some of those ideas so that we make sure that people are seeing them. Let me show you, just for those who are new to the Worship Design Studio, show you how you can be sure that you keep going back to that site. So back to network is how you get back to the main homepage all the time. And this is really what you will see when you come in each time. And the way that you get to, let me go to home, actually. Oops, home. Here we are. You'll come in and you'll see there's a lot of people doing a lot of different things. So you'll see different things on your feed. But the way you get into the resource is you always go to the left, right? You want to always click on Discovery, see what else is there. Like here's some All Saints brainstorming. There's various things that will help you. Here's examples of online worship. If you're new to all of this online stuff and doing more sensory rich worship, you want to look at some of those examples. I have webinars about other things helping you with online worship. So there's just a lot to discover. So that's what Discovery is. In Members, you can actually click on Near Me, and you can find buddies on here and see who is on there that's near you and connect with them. You can click on a person and you can click on Say Hello, and you can have a conversation with them. So get to know others and start some conversations. You are not alone. So down here on resources, that's how you get to the series every time. And that's at the very top. We're going to leave it at the top because we want you to be able to get to it really easily. But if you're ever lost, you can always use this search bar up here and type in I Believe or Advent, and it will come up. But here it is at the top of the list. And you're going to click on that and go in, and that's what we've been looking at, the table of contents. That's what it will go to first. But you want to go over to the left, and that activity feed is where you're going to be adding your ideas and your photos and whatever else you want to do. Remembering that if you have an actual video that you want to crowd share and give permission for others to use, we have a specific crowdsource feed and share videos for other churches to use. That's where you want to click to get that link to upload to our file sharing system, and we will make sure other people get to that by putting that link here. So this is where you get to all of that. Now, let's go over here to my picture. Everybody has a circle here. I'd love for you to upload your actual picture so that we can see your face like we get to do on Facebook. It has just like a random abstract thing if you haven't uploaded a picture. But since we're going to be a community working on this together, upload your picture. We'd love to see that if you're comfortable with that. You click on it, and then you can see your settings. Click on your settings and find notifications. This is really important, friends. Here's what I suggest. That you have your email updates on, but that you do a daily digest so that you're not getting tons of emails from us all the time. You want to click on daily digest. If you want to download the app and actually get mobile pushes, there you go. That I have it on because I'm attending to you all, but you might want to turn that off so that you're not getting notifications to your phone. And then you can customize all the notification types. These are for things that are in general on the website, but then you come down here and you see your group and resource notifications. I have a ton of them. Our subscribers will have a ton because you're part of all of the resources that are subscriber only. But those of you who are just in the series, you will not see so much. And what you want to do is you want to find, here we go, here it is down here, I believe even when. And you want to make sure that that is turned on so that you can get notifications in that daily digest to your email when people upload ideas. So then it gives you a link to go look at it, and you can go immediately and get on it and look at it. So if you don't want to ever be notified, just turn that all off at the top. You won't ever be notified. You'll just have to come back here on a regular basis and see what's happening in that activity feed. Friends, if there are no other questions, wow, I figured, I had in the back of my mind this would be 2 hours. Just because there's so much to cover, and I'm grateful that the Spirit was with me as I began to create this, and I tried to think of every scenario and also know that I could rely on you as a community to help each other as well as getting help from me. There's a lot of wisdom in this community, and so we are going to rely on each other. So friends, benediction for you. May we know that God meets us in the stillness and in the chaos of this world. May we know that we are not alone. May we know that the Spirit will move in mighty ways in people's hearts and lives. And may we trust, friends, that the sun shines behind the clouds and will continue to shine in our lives forever. Amen, and God bless. Bye-bye.